Welcome to the second part of my lecture on behind the scenes of the SPICE circuit simulator, and now we'll be discussing DC analysis. So, why a DC operating point? Every simulation starts with calculation of the DC operating point, which we'll call DC op. So the .op command, and as we saw before, we can write this inside our netlist, it calculates the voltage, current, power, and so forth at each component. And just as a little illustration of that, you probably learned in early circuits course that a diode, for example, if we were to have a circuit that has a diode and a resistor, what we would have kind of is that the diode's characteristic, the voltage transfer, the voltage current characteristics look something like this, and the resistor has a load line that we can show kind of like that. And the only place where we have some sort of stability of the circuit, a steady state of the circuit, is where they cross each other. So basically a DC operating point finds that point where everything in the circuit works, where the Kirchhoff's laws work here, right at this node in the middle, and it says that that can only happen where the voltage to current characteristic of the resistor and of the diode are crossing each other, intersecting, and therefore we can find out that what the voltage is in the voltage and current of every point in this circuit are. So what DC operating point is exactly solving that type of an equation, but probably something more complex than that. The next one is the .dc type of analysis, which is what we call a DC sweep. And what it does is it computes the operating point as a function of some independent variable. So in this illustration here, we have what we call a VTC, a voltage transfer curve of an inverter. This is something that I have shown you many times in my other courses, where we have the input voltage over here and the output voltage over here. But each of the points on the curve are just solutions for the DC op. So these are DC operating point. We are not talking about transient analysis or something like that. The x-axis is a DC voltage. Okay, so and the y-axis is a DC voltage as well in this case, but it could be other things such as a current or so forth. But our sweeping parameter is just changing and figuring out what the DC solution is on each of these points. The third and fourth type of analysis are the .AC and .noise analysis, and they first compute the DC operating point, and then they linearize the circuit around it to compute the small signal behavior of the circuit. So in that type of a case, let's say that we were taking our circuit from over here, and we have the DC operating point that we found over here. Now we linearize the diode over here and input, you know, a sinusoid over here and get the output over here, but it's around this DC operating point. So again, we have to start with the DC operating point as the large signal analysis and then find out what the small signal behavior is around it. Finally, we have the transient analysis, where we compute the DC operating point for an initial state of the circuit. And transient simulations are then basically a collection of sequential DC operating points starting with these initial conditions. So here we have time as our x-axis. So what we're going over here is, here t in seconds, right? We're going from one time point to the next time point, and we're figuring out here if the input over here was some sort of a pulse, then what the output was. And this is just a calculation of the propagation delay, say through a digital gate. And again, what we're doing here is for each of these points, we're discretizing time and finding out what the operating point solution is, considering the initial conditions of the previous time step. So again, it's basically solution of a DC operating point. And so what I wanted to emphasize here is that basically everything in SPICE is just a DC operating point. What we want to do is we want to solve DC operating point. What is the starting point of a DC operating point analysis? So DC operating points, as we said, are equilibrium points, and therefore they do not change in time. They're steady state points. Independent sources are configured to be constant. So if we have a V pulse or something like that, it's not changing because V pulses change over time. So they have some sort of a DC value that is going to be constant. The dV over dt is 0, so voltage does not change with time, and di over dt equals 0, so current doesn't change with time. And that means that capacitors are open circuits and inductors are short circuits, and then we can basically just remove them from the circuit. What is the starting state of a DC operating point? So all the caps and inductors are removed. That's what we just said, that they're open circuits or short circuits, and therefore we can just remove them. The DC source values are assigned. So again, these independent sources, they get some sort of a DC value. Then we use node sets, which we'll be discussing later. That's an important part of a DC operating point. And on the other hand, initial conditions are ignored because they're part of a transient simulation, and we'll be discussing that later. And the time varying part of the signal sources is ignored. So V-pulse or VPWL or all these types of things, we do not look at the time varying point. And then we apply nodal analysis, which, as we showed before, is this nice differential equation over here, which we're going to solve, and we're going to find what the voltage and currents of each of the points are in the circuit. So what is this DC op nodal analysis? Let's write Kirchhoff's laws, the current law, KCL, using what we call branch constitutive equations. So I gave a circuit over here that has three resistors, R1, R2, and R3, and it has one current source over here. We decided to call this node number 1 and this node number 2. Pay attention that those are the only two nodes in this circuit. The third node is ground, right? It's 0. Okay, there are only two voltage potentials that are non-zero in this circuit. Okay, so for node number 1, what the equation is we are going to have to sum up the currents going into node number 1. So we have the current over here, which is the current through this resistor, and that's V2 minus V1 divided by R1. And then we have the current that's driven from the current source, and that's I0. So the current through R1 and the current through I0, they sum up to be 0. And if we look at node 2, okay, what we're going to have is that we first have the current that's going this way, which is going to be V1 minus V2 over R1. And then let's say we have the current going out through R2. That's going to be V2 over R2, so with a minus sign because it's going out. And if we look at the current going through R3, that's V2, again, minus 0. So it's just V2 over R3, and the sum of all those three is going to be equal to 0. So that is something that I'm sure that you learned in one of your very introductory electronics courses. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a little trick and replace the resistance with the conductance. And we're going to call that G. So G is 1 over R, and that allows us to get rid of these things that are in the denominator. So now instead of R1, we're going to write G1, so we just have G1 times V2 minus V1 plus I0 equals 0, and we have G1 times V1 minus V2 minus G2 over, times V2 minus G3 times V2. So that's now how we kind of replace that, and that's really nice because now we can kind of separate the different voltages and just rewrite that into G1 V1 minus G1 V2 equals I0, and minus G1 V1 plus G1 plus G2 plus G3 times V2 equals 0. And as we know, that's just a linear system. It's really easy to write out. So that's G1 minus G1 times V1 minus V2 over there, like G1 V1 minus G1 V2 equals I0, and minus G1 V1 plus G1 V2 plus G2 V2 plus G3 V2 equals 0. And we got a nice linear system over here, which you can then go and solve with different matrix linear system solvers, which are something that we know how to do very well. If we look better into this, we can directly write out the conductance matrix, and that's kind of a cool thing, and allows us to make a quick algorithm that can do this with a computer. Okay, so the algorithm is that for the diagonal elements of the conductance matrix, every element AII, we add all the conductances that are attached directly to node I. So let's take node 1 because that's going to be over here. Okay, that's 1, 1, right? That's A1, 1. Okay, we're going to look at all the conductances that are attached directly, and the only resistor here is R1. So therefore, what we're going to get over here is G1. And then looking down here, because this is now A22, what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the resistors that are connected, R1, R2, and R3. So we're just going to sum up all the conductances, G1 plus G2 plus G3. Okay. So that was how we got the diagonal of the matrix already. Next, we're going to go for off-diagonal elements. So now for Aij, okay, we're going to add all the conductances connected directly between node I and node j and multiply by -1. So this is going to be A12. And this one over here is going to be A21. And we have a symmetric matrix because, as you can see, A12 and A21 are between node ij and node ji, and it's the same. So we look at that, and between nodes 1 and 2, we only have R1. So that would be G1, but we're going to multiply it by -1, so we're going to get minus G1, and again, it's going to be exactly the same for node A21. So we have our conductance matrix completely, and that is what we saw basically on the previous slide. Okay. Most off-diagonal elements, there are no direct connections. So in the case we had over here, we have very few nodes. We have basically only 2 nodes, and there is a connection between them. But if you get a bigger circuit, between node 1 and node 100, there's probably no connection. And then A100 or A101 will both be 0. And that means that we're going to have really big matrices for mini element and mini node circuits, but they're going to be very sparse. And sparse matrices are much easier to solve than dense ones. So we discussed how to compose the conductance matrix, but what about the source vector? So the source vector I, that's this over here, okay, we're going to go for element I of the source vector, element 1 and element 2. We're going to sum all the source currents flowing into node I and subtract all the source currents flowing out of node I. So what do we have over here? For node 1, which is going to be this space over here, we have I0 going into 1, and we don't have any source current that's running out of I. So therefore, the source vector I in place 1 is going to be is just I0. And for node 2, there are no current sources connected to it. So we're just going to have 0. Okay. So that is great because we were able to write this linear system very easily and directly, and we can algorithmically program that into a computer. However, that is not sufficient because we didn't talk about voltage sources over here, and that is because nodal analysis does not work with voltage sources. But we know the voltage on the node, so we can get an equation such as V1 equals Vin, right? If we put Vin connected to one of the nodes, we know what the DC-op solution is for that node. It's really easy, actually. But we don't have an ohmic relation on the voltage source, so we need to add another unknown to the voltage node vector, which is I1, and let's see this by example. Okay, so this is modified nodal analysis, and this is how SPICE basically works. I'm going to give you this type of and you see that what we did up till now is this. We're going to add a voltage source over here, a 1-volt voltage source, and that's going to create another node that we're going to call 3. We're going to add a few more resistors, and that's going to create another node called node 4. So we're going to get a much bigger matrix, actually a 4x4 matrix for the elements, but the voltage source is going to add us another one. Okay, so how do we do it? We start with the diagonals again. So for AII, we are going to put all the conductances that are connected to it. So for node 1, we have just R1 as before, and therefore we're going to get G1. Okay, for node number 2, we have R1, R2, and R3, so we're going to get G1, G2, and G3. For node 3, what do we have? We have R3, R4, and R5, so we're going to get G3, G4, and G5. And for node 4, we have R5 and R6, so we're going to get G5 plus G6. So that is all good. And now what we can do is look at the off-diagonals. And again, what we're going to do is look at all of the conductances between nodes. So remember, this is going to be 1, 2, and 2, 1. So what do we have between 1 and 2? We just have G1 with a minus sign. Okay, then we're going to next have, I guess 1, 3, we don't have anything. 2, 3, we have R3 between it. 3, 4, we have R5 between it. So we can go and write those. Between R2 and 3, we have minus G3. Between 3 and 4, we have minus G5. And the rest are all zeros. Okay, so now we have to go for the current sources because that's what's going to create our I vector, remember? Okay, so we know that the current source going into node 1 is going to be I0, and there are no other current sources in the design, so we're just going to get zeros for all the rest. However, as you can see here, I left room for another row, another column. Why did I do that? That's for the modified nodal analysis. The voltage source, it adds a variable, and this variable, as we mentioned before, is going to be called I1. Okay, that's going to be the current going through our voltage source. Okay, but what do we know about the voltage source? So first of all, we have 1 times I1 is added to node number 3. So I1 is going to be the current going out of the voltage source. So now we added a 1 over here, and 1 times I1 is going to be added to the KCL of node number 3. Okay, and the other thing is that we know that that the voltage on node number 3 is going to be 1 volt. Okay, so we get 1 times V3 is going to be equal to 1 volt. And that's how we defined our modified nodal analysis. So with that, we can go over and now see how we use the Newton-Raphson method to solve this type of equation.